ABC General Hospital spoilers reveal that what makes this situation so compelling is not simply the zoning adjustment itself, but the deeper crack it opens in the fragile balance of power around Port Charles. Tracy is far too experienced to believe that a decision allowing helicopters to fly over the Quartermain estate is only about urban planning or public development. To her, this feels calculated, deliberate, and deeply personal. The new regulation threatens not only the comfort and privacy of the Quartermain family, but also the symbolic authority their name has carried for generations. For Tracy, that is not a minor inconvenience. It is an intrusion, a humiliation, and perhaps most unsettling of all, a warning that someone believes the Quartermains can be pushed aside. As she looks more closely at what has changed, Tracy begins to sense that the issue reaches far beyond Laura's public office and Sonny's usual habit of operating in the shadows. What disturbs her most is the possibility that Laura and Sonny are both hiding something, perhaps not from each other, but from everyone around them. Their silence does not feel accidental. It feels protective, strategic, and driven by pressure that neither of them is prepared to name out loud. Tracy can sense the shape of a secret before she can prove it, and that instinct is exactly what makes her dangerous when she feels cornered. The more she studies the sudden adjustment and the timing behind it, the more convinced she becomes that this is part of a larger effort to shift the power structure in Port Charles while forcing people like Laura and Sonny into compromises they would never openly admit. If Sonny and Laura are truly being squeezed by Sidwell and Cullum, then Tracy understands the danger is already much worse than anyone wants to admit. Pressure changes people. It forces them into silence, into bad judgment, into alliances that look impossible from the outside. Tracy knows Laura well enough to believe that she would never willingly support something so damaging to the Quartermains unless she were trapped in a larger political and psychological game. She also knows Sonny well enough to understand that when he starts concealing the truth, it usually means the threat is already close, personal, and explosive. That realization leaves Tracy in an agonizing position. Her fury is directed at the decision, but her deeper fear is aimed at what that decision reveals about the people behind it. What drives Tracy now is not only anger, but urgency. She knows she cannot afford hesitation, because hesitation is exactly how people like Sidwell gain ground. If the helicopter authorization remains in place, then the Quartermain family loses more than peace and quiet. They lose control over their own space, their own boundaries, and the right to decide what can invade their lives. Tracy sees that clearly, and once she sees a threat to her family, she becomes relentless. Every instinct in her is telling her that this permit must be overturned, not just because it is unfair, but because allowing it to stand would mean surrendering to a hidden agenda she refuses to tolerate. At the same time, Tracy cannot ignore the uncomfortable truth that the zoning issue may only be the surface layer of something much darker. The more she thinks about Laura and Sonny's secrecy, the more she suspects that both of them are carrying burdens connected to Sidwell and Cullum, and that those burdens are beginning to distort every decision around them. This is what makes the situation so volatile. Tracy is not only fighting a policy change, she is fighting misinformation, emotional manipulation, and the possibility that two people at the center of Port Charles are already being controlled by forces they can barely contain. Every move she makes now has to serve two purposes at once: protect the Quartermain family and expose the truth before the damage becomes irreversible. That is why Tracy feels compelled to act again and again, without pause, without comfort, and without the luxury of pretending this will solve itself. She knows the danger of waiting for clean answers. Clean answers rarely come in a town built on leverage, fear, and hidden debts. So she pushes forward, determined to dismantle the approval that threatens her home while also forcing the truth into the open. Each new step carries the risk of another shock, another revelation, another betrayal hidden beneath polite political language. But Tracy has never been the kind of woman who steps back simply because the ground is unstable. If anything, instability sharpens her. The emotional weight of this story lies in Tracy's growing realization that she may be one of the few people still willing to confront what others are too compromised to say aloud. Laura may be protecting herself, Sonny may be protecting whatever remains under his control, and both may be trying to outrun the pressure pressing down on them from Sidwell and Cullum. But Tracy does not have the option of looking away. The Quartermain name means too much to her, and the violation of that legacy feels like a personal assault. Beneath her outrage is something even more revealing. Fear that if she fails now, the people pulling the strings will not stop at helicopters over the estate. They will keep taking, keep pressuring, keep rewriting the rules until no one remembers where the line once stood. That is why this conflict feels so tense and so emotionally charged. Tracy is not merely resisting a regulation, she is resisting erasure, manipulation, and the quiet corruption of people who once seemed untouchable. And in a strange way, that is what makes her anger feel almost noble. She is furious, yes, but her rage is rooted in loyalty, in instinct, and in a refusal to let power be stolen through silence. Personally, that is what makes this storyline hit harder than a simple political clash. It feels like the beginning of a deeper unraveling where every guarded expression and every delayed confession matters. Tracy's battle to protect the Quartermain family may end up revealing far more than a zoning scandal, and that possibility gives the entire story a quiet, dangerous intensity that is hard to ignore. What makes this storyline so gripping is that Tracy is no longer standing at the edge of the conflict, watching Port Charles twist itself around secrets and compromise. She is now fully inside it, forced into a dangerous alliance with Laura and Sonny against Sidwell and Cullum, two men whose influence has already spread far beyond what most people in town are willing to admit. This is no longer just a matter of personal dislike, political disagreement, or old family rivalry. It has become a battle for survival, control, and legacy, and Tracy understands better than anyone that once men like Sidwell and Cullum gain enough ground, they do not stop until they have taken everything they can reach. For Tracy, however, the fight is not only about protecting Laura or pulling Sonny out of the danger closing around him. Beneath that urgent mission lies another motive, one far more personal and far more emotionally charged. She wants to reclaim what Drew has tainted. She wants the Quartermain legacy, the family inheritance, and the meaning attached to that name to be pulled back from the shadow of his crimes. Drew's actions have left behind more than scandal. They have poisoned trust, distorted the moral balance of the family, and created new shockwaves that continue to move through Port Charles long after the original damage was done. Tracy feels that corruption deeply because she does not see legacy as money or property alone. To her, legacy is memory, bloodline, dignity, and the right to say that the Quartermain name still stands for something stronger than betrayal. That is what sharpens every choice she makes. On the surface, Tracy is part of a united front with Laura and Sonny, and that unity gives the appearance of strength. But underneath, her intentions are more complicated than either of them may fully understand. Tracy is helping them because Sidwell and Cullum are too dangerous to ignore, and because if Laura and Sonny fall, the consequences will spread across the entire city. Yet she is also acting because every move against Sidwell creates an opening for her to restore what has been weakened by Drew's crimes. She is fighting a public battle and a private one at the same time, and that dual purpose makes her more determined but also more dangerous. Port Charles begins to shift the moment Tracy adjusts her strategy. She is no longer reacting emotionally in isolated bursts of anger. She is thinking more coldly, moving more deliberately, and measuring every alliance for what it can give her in return. That change alone is enough to unsettle the balance of the town. Tracy has always been formidable, but when she stops being merely outraged and starts becoming precise, the people around her should be worried. Her actions now do not simply challenge Sidwell and Cullum. They alter the behavior of everyone connected to them. Power begins to move, fear begins to spread, hidden motives begin to rise to the surface, and that is exactly what makes the situation feel so dangerous. The threat surrounding Sonny and Laura becomes even more intense because Tracy understands something both of them may be too burdened to fully admit. Surviving this conflict may require more than rescue. It may require control. Sidwell and Cullum do not only attack through force, they weaken people through pressure, secrets, leverage, and emotional exhaustion. Tracy can see that Sonny and Laura are both vulnerable in different ways. Laura is carrying the weight of public duty while trying to stay morally intact in a situation designed to break her judgment. Sonny, on the other hand, remains dangerous and unpredictable even when he is under siege, which makes him both a valuable ally and a potential liability. Tracy knows that saving them may not be enough if they remain exposed to the same instincts and blind spots that allowed the danger to grow in the first place. That is where the deeper shock of this story begins to take shape. Tracy may very well rescue Sonny and Laura from the immediate threat posed by Sidwell and Cullum, but in doing so, she may also decide that she cannot leave either of them completely free to act on their own terms. That possibility changes the emotional core of the story. Tracy is not motivated by cruelty, but by a fierce belief that someone must remain strong enough to do what others cannot. If Laura is too emotionally cornered and Sonny too volatile to be trusted with full control, Tracy may convince herself that restraining them is not betrayal but necessity. In her mind, protecting people and controlling them may start to feel like the same thing. That inner shift is what gives this storyline such weight. Tracy does not become cold because she stops caring. She becomes colder because she cares too much and trusts too little. She has watched too many people make disastrous choices in the name of love, loyalty, or desperation. She has seen powerful men like Drew leave wreckage behind them and still force others to clean it up. She has seen how quickly Port Charles can be rewritten by those willing to exploit weakness. So when she looks at Laura and Sonny, she may no longer see only allies. She may see two people worth saving, but also two unstable forces who cannot be allowed to shape the aftermath unchecked. That makes every act of heroism in this story feel complicated. If Tracy pulls Laura and Sonny out of danger, it will not necessarily be a clean victory. It may come with conditions, with emotional debts, and with a silent expectation that from this point on they move within boundaries she helps define. That is a terrifying possibility because Tracy's strength has always come from her certainty. Once she believes she is right, she can justify almost anything in the name of family, order, and preservation. And while Sidwell and Cullum are clearly the villains pressing danger into every corner of Port Charles, Tracy's evolution suggests that defeating one form of control may simply open the door to another. At the center of it all is the question of what legacy truly means. Tracy wants to reclaim what Drew's crimes damaged, but reclaiming a legacy is never as simple as restoring property or exposing the truth. Legacy is shaped by the methods used to protect it. If Tracy saves Laura and Sonny only by tightening her hold over them, then she may preserve the city while also changing its emotional landscape forever. Port Charles would survive, but under a new kind of pressure, one born not from open criminal manipulation, but from the will of a woman who has decided that chaos must be managed at any cost. Personally, that is what makes this kind of story so haunting. Tracy is at her most fascinating when her love for family and order becomes almost indistinguishable from domination. It is easy to cheer for her when she stands against men like Sidwell and Cullum because they represent such obvious danger, but the deeper tension comes from realizing that victory may not return Port Charles to safety. It may simply place the future in Tracy's hands, and hands that strong rarely let go easily. That quiet possibility gives the storyline an edge that feels darker, sharper, and far more emotional than a simple battle between good and evil.